So here we go. Christina, I'm going to hand over the beginning to you, and then I'm going to take over.
Okay, well, we wanted to come here today and talk to you about celebrating milestones. They are something that you can really leverage for many different ways. It doesn't always have to be your anniversary. It could be a new executive director. It can be maybe a program is taking a big step or having an anniversary, not your entire organization. So just thinking about how you can be more strategic when those big like flexion points in your organization come up. And that's me and Stephanie. Hi. We already did the introductions. We did want to put up a poll, and we kind of went around and did this in the introductions as well. But if there's 2 questions, what brings you here today? And I'm actually not remembering what the second one was.
What brings you to the webinar is the first one. And I think that was all we did.
Oh,
Yeah, so you're good. Okay, great. We're getting our votes in.
Where's the poll?
Oh,
Oh,
should have popped
I
up
got
on the
it.
screen. Yeah.
I got it. It moved to my other screen.
Oh, 2 screens. I don't know how you 2-screen people do it.
Oh,
It would be
can't
so
live without it.
so as we learned in introductions, everyone's planning an upcoming milestone. But I think maybe let's go to the next slide. Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Let me close that up. Here we go.
Including empowered. Here's some of the things that we did to celebrate our 5th so far. We definitely as a team thought about how can we celebrate our community who's been a part of this the entire time. How could we change our look, like bring attention to it during this time? What do we want to share out during this time? Stephanie can probably, and Rochelle actually, could probably say more about that.
Sure. So as you can see on the left-hand side, this was the blast that we sent out. Most of you, if you're on our email list, you should have received this. As you can see, it's our 5th birthday. So we played on the 5 in 2025. So that was really, we actually worked with a designer. We thought through this with her together. We used our look and feel that we've been using for the last 5 years as well, all of our color scheme, and we just did a play on all of that. The middle document that you see with the happy holidays, this was a card that went out to all of our current clients. They also received, we went to one of our clients, HHP Lift. You can check them out and learn more about them, but we made candles within their organization, and we sent all these candles. You can see what the final product is. We engraved our Empowered Nonprofits logo on the top of the candle, and then each of our clients got that middle card that had a little message for them and also pictures of us making our candles along the way.
Sorry to interrupt. We're not seeing anything on screen.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh,
Oh no.
I am.
Yes, we are.
I
see it. I see it all.
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's just
Oh,
us. Ignore me.
I was like, that was so patient of all of you.
yeah.
No, we're definitely seeing it.
Okay,
Oh,
it's
that's
just us.
okay.
I'm sorry, Sylvia and Jess. I don't know why you can't see it.
That's okay.
Maybe
we'll
the
figure it out
movement.
on our own.
You
Tell
probably
us
have to
if
hit the
you don't-
tab at the top, Sylvia. Like, do you have 2 tabs? One that is like the wall screen and then one that says meeting?
Yeah.
There you
Thank you
go.
so much. Got it. Yep.
Oh, Tamika,
that's
you're
why.
so smart. I love
Thank
to.
you.
Good job.
I was a
Great.
teacher during the pandemic for almost 20 years. We learned a lot about Zooms.
Yeah, that was very patient. And then in January, we invited all of our current clients to an event at HHP Lift where you can see that picture on the bottom right. Stephanie, you're right there in the front, where we made soap. at HHP Lift with our clients, and they got to take those soaps home with them as well. So that was a way for us to kick off just our first celebration. This is our webinar. We're going to be hosting something in the summer for not just our clients, but all of our partners, past clients and future clients along the way as well. So stay tuned for information on that. So we're also pulling that through in everything that we're doing and being very thoughtful about that. Any questions?
And I'll just highlight, we can go to the next slide, but I'll just highlight what the thought that was put into this was, what do we want to get out of our 5th anniversary? And it's that we're connecting with our clients and the community that got here. It's really highlighting our mission, which is why the gifts this time in our events have been partners with a client. So it's really, I'd say, reiterating and underpinning what Empowered is about and trying to make sure that that message comes across in multiple ways. So it's not, we didn't choose to do it just because it was our 5th. It gave us an opportunity to do that, though, to kind of strengthen our brand and build relationships. And so I'm the, like, if there's not a strategy behind it, why are we doing it person? And so I think the very first questions that we need to ask ourselves is, yes, we have an anniversary or something, whatever it may be. I'm going to say anniversary. Know that that encompasses all milestones. But yes, we may have a milestone coming up, but do we need to make it a thing? Like, who else will care about this? Is there a way, and do we have like the capacity to actually leverage it in a way that will help our organization, further our mission, further some other goals? Are we able to balance it? And will it just be worth our investment? Because maybe it might be that this one can pass. And it might be better to think about the one that's coming like a couple years down the road, because you'll be better prepared.
Okay, great. Next.
But why you would want to do it is beyond a fundraising opportunity, because it gives you something new and exciting to draw attention to your organization. It is great at strengthening relationships, to share what you're doing in the future. So even though a lot of times in anniversaries or like celebrating a person at your organization, we want to talk about the past, but that past and that history really needs to connect to where you're going. If you're launching anything, it can strengthen your identity. But the thing that I think is most important about this and what you need for fundraising is that it creates a sense of urgency. Like, something is going to happen in this time frame of your anniversary celebration. So there's kind of this concrete period where you can ask people to do a bit more or engage in a bit of a different way.
Love it. Okay, so here we go. My turn. So where are we going? So we really want to make sure in the beginning that we are setting very clear goals. I mean, Christina spoke to this a little bit. Like, why are we doing this? Is this worthwhile? Does this make sense? And so we want to start thinking about our anniversaries at least 6 months ahead of time, if not a year. We really want to we started thinking about our 5th year probably last summer and what we wanted to do. We had some initial conversations about it and what we wanted this year to look like. We brought our whole team together to think about it as well. We would use staff meeting time to strategically think about what we wanted to get out of this year, what was our end of year campaign going to look like, and all of those pieces. So really bringing the essentials to the table to really define what your goals are. We want the goals always to be measurable. We want them always to be specific, especially around fundraising. If that is something, if you're trying to build community, if you're trying to build your board, then of course that you would measure that. So we want to, engage 10 new people this year or whatever that is. Or we have like one of our clients is celebrating their 25th anniversary. They have decided that they are going to establish a $1 million goal between 3 events that they're going to have this year. So we always want to make sure that the numbers that we're establishing are measurable and very well thought through. And also, if you are going to center it around fundraising, what are you specifically going to be funding? Is it a new program or initiative? Are you capacity building? Like, we want to add more staff to our team. We want to grow certain programs. Do you want an endowment? Like, maybe you put an endowment campaign around a very large anniversary. If you're celebrating 50 or 75 years, can we raise a really large number so that we can give off 5% every year to the organization, and ensure that, we are, funding, some extras, but also it's there in case of a God forbid, right? Are there capital improvements that we want to, make our campaign, relevant to? So really thinking through, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? What are we funding? You need that message to be very clear when you're coming through. And also, what is our vision for our next chapter? So we just did a 75th anniversary campaign last year for one of our clients, and everything was around celebrating the past and then, reflecting on that in the present. And now this year, it's our next chapter, right? That's what we're calling our campaign, the next chapter, 75 years and beyond. And so now we're looking towards the future. How are we building? And with this current client, we've spent the last 3 years building up their donor base of support. We've built up their volunteer base of support, their board, involving people in committees, involving them on host committees. And this client actually went from raising $370,000 last year. I'm sorry, in 2023. And in 2024, we raised $570,000. So it was an enormous jump that we were able to take with this organization because we really worked on the strategy and how we were involving people and how we were going to move them forward. And now we're on to that next chapter. So how are we engaging with new foundations? How are we engaging with more donors? How are we bringing new people in that we've never worked with before? So we always wanted to find where we're going and what do we want to bring in order to strengthen our organization and so we can serve our mission. Any questions?
And now that the people have been involved in that meaningful way, they're more primed in this next chapter to give major gifts.
Exactly.
And Tamika, I saw your question. I think it's exactly the next slide.
Okay, before that, you answer that one with the next slide, then I do have another question now.
Sure.
So Stephanie, so do you guys just come up with the strategies, the campaign, and then the board has to like do all of the execution, or do you take some of that execution off of their plate and do that as well?
So it really depends. It depends on the organization. Some organizations are very, like, they have incredible working boards. And so the board really owns a lot of this. For organizations that have been around for a longer period of time and or have staff that is seasoned, it's going to be a shared responsibility between the two. I'll get a little bit more into the leadership structure in a few minutes, but I will keep both of your questions in mind as I'm moving into that. And if I still don't answer it, then I'll give you even info. Okay, perfect. Okay, so your planning essentials. As I said in my last slide, 6 months is really your minimum, but 9 to 12 months ahead of time for a year-long celebration is really optimal as to where we want you to be. This means for like the whole year. So when we were planning for the 75th organization for my client last year, we started planning probably 9 months ahead of time. And we looked at the calendar for the next year and we decided, okay, based on what we've already been hosting over the last year, what did really well. And so what do we want to build on going forward? And we established 3 different touch points throughout the year. We did a free webinar in the spring for the alumni of the organization on a topic that we thought would be relevant to them. It was on parenting, and we made sure that we had the experts and that we had the tools for the organization. Then in the summer, we did an alumni reunion at the camp, so that we were able to bring alumni together to feel good, to feel connected to camp, to feel like they were engaging with the organization. And then in the late fall, we hosted a gala. So that was a fundraising opportunity, and everything was building up towards that final celebration, the gala in November. And so it was really a wonderful opportunity to touch point, to really build in the theme, the marketing, how we were talking about each event, planning it from the beginning, sending out a save the date for all of the events throughout the course of the year. So we were telling a story about how we were going to be celebrating together. And then you really need about 3 months maybe for a single event. Remember, that doesn't mean from the time you decide to do it till 3 months later when you execute it. We're talking about, it probably takes about 3 months to really think about what you want to do for that particular event. We want you to budget for these milestones, really think through your expenses are going to go up the more events that you have, the more engagements that you have. You're going to have to pay additional staff. You're going to maybe have to hire somebody from outside to help you with this. Your celebrations might attract more people, so you might need to look at a different facility that can host more people. So you really need to be very thoughtful about what your budget is going to entail. So you also then make sure that the amount of money that you're raising, justifies the expense of the year. So we really want you thinking about that. I already talked about staff capacity. A little bit more about communication planning and branding is, this is a special time for you. Maybe this is the time to bring in somebody from the outside to brand if you don't have somebody on your staff. Looking at your logo, how can you incorporate the number of years? Our client, North Lawndale Employment Network, we actually sent out an e-blast yesterday, I think it was, on that celebration that we had. If you look at that, you'll see the adorable, I don't have it in front of me right this second, but I can share it at the end. Their 25 incorporated their logo beautifully into it. And so really thinking about how that's going to look and feel, and having a calendar. You are going to have your regular programming blasts and information that goes out. You don't want to lose people that are receiving your e-blast. You don't want to lose people that are, because you have too much information going out there. You always want to strike that right balance. You want to be very strategic about that. And then also maintaining how often you are meeting with your group, so that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, that you're all really coordinated with each other. It's also accountability to have these meetings. For an event that we just had, we met weekly with our committee. It created, the group felt that they had to come with updates, that they had to follow through on what they were doing because these were our accountability meetings. So really making sure that you have all of these things in place before you actually leap forward into the actual planning process. Any questions?
And I'll give a few examples just so people can see how this can play out differently. Whereas maybe you don't have a budget for it, but you have staff capacity, or you don't have that time frame, but you still want to take advantage of something. I've worked with one organization where an executive director was leaving, and we wanted to figure out how we could honor him, but also could it be a fundraising opportunity? And so he had been there for a long time and was retiring. So we used it to launch our Planned Giving Society and ask for some special funds for a program that was very dear to him. That didn't take a lot of time or staff capacity. That was like thinking about a series of communications and a party and making sure that we had our planned giving program set up. Another organization, we actually chose to use, they were relatively young, so use a 5th anniversary as a time. We focused on like 5 donors that we really wanted to cultivate. And we did, honestly, the 5th anniversary was focusing on getting really big gifts from them. And we did some events and we honored their involvement. But it didn't have to be this whole thing. So that maybe took like 6 months. With another organization, we started planning 5 years out. And I would say they were a mid-sized organization, so raised about $1 million a year. And they used that to their 75th anniversary to do a big comprehensive campaign. So their goal was to raise $5 million and they ended up raising 6. But they were able to plan for that because they started planning so far out.
Thanks, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we go. We want to design our milestone year. We want to have multiple engagement points throughout the course of the year. Having some sort of kickoff event or kickoff meeting. These things don't have to be large. They don't have to be time or budget intensive. They can just be bringing people together on a Zoom to fill them in on what is going on. It could be a webinar. It could be just a small coffee in somebody's home. You know, really just, but we want to have something that kind of formalizes the start of the year, the start of that milestone, with some to bring all of those important people together. Once again, I'll get more into the leadership piece in a second. We want to think about especially if we're incorporating fundraising, who are those major donors that we need to begin to cultivate? We actually, when I was talking about that 75th anniversary event, we didn't just start cultivating them during the milestone year. We started cultivating those donors at least 1 or 2 years ahead of time so that when the anniversary did come up, they were very, very committed to the organization and wanted to be involved in this process. So start to even before a major milestone, even a couple of years out. I know one of you said that, you know, your anniversary isn't for 2 years. You know, start thinking about who those people are now that you want to have involved so you can begin to like establish that cultivation and stewardship plan for them. What do the appeals look like? So how are you soliciting? Is it going to be a letter accompanied with phone calls, accompanied with an event? How do all of those appeals work together? What is your culminating celebration? How are you ending this campaign? You may have a gala, but then how are you wrapping it all up? Are you sending out information to people? Are you having a thank-a-thon? Are you sending gifts out to all of your sponsors? Making sure that you have something that kind of like puts a formal close to the celebration. As Christina spoke about the legacy or the plan giving, you know, if you've been around for a really long time, or even if you've been around for a small amount of time, it's never too early to really start talking or thinking about legacy or plan giving. If you're in the first couple of years of your organization, I've talked to one of my clients about this. Your legacy or plan giving is not going to be your top priority. But if you've been around for a while, we do really want you starting to think about how you can incorporate that into all of your organizations, especially if you have an aging population, you know, like a church or a synagogue, you know, a mosque. All of these organizations are, you know, we always have a population that is going through a life cycle and they're maybe aging out. And those are the donors we want to be speaking to about legacy or plan giving opportunities. So we never, ever want to lose that. In addition, we always want 100%. If you do have some sort of legacy or plan giving component, we always want to make sure that all of your board members are signed up in some sort of capacity because we want to always lead by example. Okay, so what do our publications, what does our digital story look like? You know, Allison's on here. You know, she creates gorgeous videos for a number of our clients. Do we want to film? Do we want to have a larger film that we're using at our larger events? And then maybe we want some 20 to 30 second little snippets that we use on social media or in our e-blasts. You know, what are the quotes that we're using from our clients? What are the pictures we're using? Maybe we need to have a photography session and bring that in to go into some of our clients or to photograph some of our people in action so we have a beautiful visual story to be able to tell. And also collecting those stories verbally, you know, from our client base of support. What have you been experiencing? Keeping track of that information so you can use that. You know, people don't, I think about like what you like to read and what like you like to look at it on social media. Do you like to read a paragraph of information, or, you know, when you go online, are you following people who are telling a story through pictures, and they're short and they're beautiful and they're powerful, right? We tend to watch the things, and we flip through the things where there's technically just like a lot of text, and we stop on the things where there's something like passionate or mission focused or compelling when we look at them. So we want you to incorporate all the elements: social media, through your e-blast, in person. What do your materials look like? How are you telling your story through all of these things? Make sure you have a milestone landing page on your website, one page where you can go to specifically dedicated to your milestone. And that could have a story on it. It could have your giving levels. It could have who you're honoring, all the information there. How much have you already raised so far? How are your donors already playing a role? Who's your host committee, your event committees, et cetera, et cetera. And then we already talked about social media, so I'm not going to talk about that. I just saw, looking at the time, can we go through the next ones faster? Yes, Christina, sorry about that. I get so excited. Okay, here we go. Who's your support system? So we really want you thinking about who is in your wheelhouse. So who have been involved readily for the last few years, and you can count on them, and they are super important. Also think back to, okay, 50 years back, who were the founders, right? I don't know if you all watched SNL and the reunion, like, you know, the 50th anniversary celebration a couple of weeks ago, but they had their original cast members on. You know, they came and they told their stories and they reflected back. Bringing some of your original founders in is a way to connect to your past and to also remember where you came from, right? Maybe your organization has extensively evolved over the years. So we want those original people there to be able to validate, like, this is how we all started, and now look how far we've come, right? We want to have a committee around this, people who can help really formulate your vision and help support that vision along the way. We've already talked about this a little bit, so I don't need to cover it so much, but identifying your major donors along the way. How are you cultivating them? How are you stewarding them? How are you bringing them in? Maybe that's through sponsorship levels. Maybe that's through a major donor appreciation event that has no fundraising attached to it. Our staff should be ambassadors. They need to, everybody from fundraisers to program staff, they all need to know what's going on. So you want to engage them. You want to fill them in on your anniversary. You want to fill them in on the messaging. Maybe even through program, you can be utilizing some of your look and feel along the way. Can you create an honorary committee? Maybe this is how you can bring in some of those founders, or maybe, leadership, important people that have maybe helped make your organization possible. So we, our client, North Lawndale Employment Network, they have a number of congressmen and women and, and state representatives that help make their organization where it is today. They couldn't have done it without them. So putting those people on, their honorary committee.
And this may not seem like a really important step, but it is a step that you want to actually spend your time with, because some sort of meaningful involvement or co-creation or strategic conversations are really what cultivate donors and board members and ambassadors for the long term. So it may seem like we can just do it ourselves. We'll get this done ourselves, but it's actually really, really useful to spend time here.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just so you don't have burnout, by the way, for some of my clients, I actually have 3 committees if I have 3 events. So I'll have 3 main chairs that weave through, so they all participate in every single committee meeting. But then I have the 3 different events with different committee members. So it is a lot. So you might need to hire somebody or have outside support to lead you through this. But it is also a way to like really avoid that burnout of a committee that goes for the entire year with you. Okay, I'm going to move quickly because I'm getting in trouble from my team. Okay, community centered. We want to celebrate those who made it possible. I already talked about this a little bit. So giving special recognition to those. Christina talked about a milestone where an executive director was retiring. Maybe if you're celebrating 50 years, you can honor one of the founders of your organization. So maybe you have a special giving society for people who have been giving for a certain amount of years for your organization, and giving them maybe a free ticket or 2 to your event or whatever it is, thinking about how to engage them, highlighting their stories along the way, inviting them to reflect with you and engaging them. So these are all ways that we can really think about, okay, the people that were here first, the people that helped make this happen, how are we bringing them in, and how are we making them feel really connected to this process? A lot of them have probably moved on. So this is an opportunity for you to really re-engage them. Fundraising strategies. So we don't just want to have events, right? I've talked about a lot of event related things. Normally I wouldn't necessarily call a webinar event. I think that it might be informational or educational engagement. An alumni reunion, it's an event, but it's more of an opportunity to bring people in and feel connected to camp. I'm talking more about, when I talk about an event or a fundraising event, really talking about a gala or something like that, right? So we want you to think about milestone sponsorship packages. Can you have an overarching anniversary sponsorship package where you get opportunities to all of the engagements that you're having throughout the year? Maybe as Christina, can you tie certain things to how many years you've been involved? Can we do a matching gift? Can we, at our last event, we had a $25,000 match for certain giving levels in honor of the 25th anniversary. So maybe you can, think of that. Also, you can really incorporate, maybe you have a $25,000 anniversary giving level this year, and that gets you a certain amount of thing if you're celebrating 25 years. Peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, get your people involved, get them out there talking to their people, give them a page to raise money for. Sometimes these are a little more transactional, but it certainly opens up the engagement from a wider community. Going to foundations, letting them know it's your milestone year, and making sure that that they are, on board with you. We have some foundations that for our North Lawndale Employment Network, they were able to find funds in different areas of their foundation to give a donation because it was a special year and it wasn't a grant for us. It was actually a donation. So there's oftentimes, if you could talk to a foundation and there's like some sort of deep connection to that organization, they will be willing to do those kinds of things. And then also just launching something new, whatever that is, that can get people excited. Is it a program? Is it some sort of scholarship campaign? Rochelle wants me to mention that our Camp Ben Frankel organization raised dollars to increase the amount of scholarship that they could offer. And they identified a group of individuals in Israel, children, to come to camp last year to escape all of the violence in Israel, to come to camp. And so this was a special campaign that they announced in order for that process.
And I know someone who registered mentioned monthly giving programs, and this would be a great opportunity to launch something like that. Like, we're doing this through our 50th year or whatever it is, and we hope that this will be the way that you make a gift. Or if you're an annual giver, please consider giving monthly as part of our blah campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, how many more do I have? 2 more slides, right? Okay, communication
3.
strategy. Oh, 3 more. Okay. Communication strategies. We've already talked about communications a lot, so I don't feel like I have to spend a lot of time on this slide. But I do love we're X years old, like really identifying like how far we've come, right? We're 50 years old and here's what we've accomplished together. But making sure that all of your communications are really integrated and that you're telling that comprehensive story. And also always making sure that there's some sort of compelling ask attached to all of your communications. It doesn't necessarily mean you're asking for money. It could be, we want you to attend a webinar, or we want you to sign up for a newsletter, or we want you to forward this on to 5 people that don't know about the organization. So always have some sort of compelling ask attached to all of your communication strategies.
And I would say that here it can't just be about that this is your anniversary, or that someone is retiring, or that this program is reaching a milestone. It really needs to be about what you're doing next, because people they don't, it's exciting that you're turning a certain age or that something is happening, but it's not what is going to inspire them to give or be involved in the future. They need to know what's happening moving forward to want to involve themselves above and beyond what they may have already been.
Okay. And then once again, we've really covered a lot of this already, the engagement beyond dollars. Are there volunteer initiatives? Can you engage volunteers in a certain way? Can you have a larger volunteer group at your event that really feels like they're playing a role in making the event successful and they feel really good about that? Once again, having reunions with former alumni and staff and engaging them. Can you do a community service project, together on some level? An advocacy campaign, some sort of collaborative partnership. We actually have an organization that it's their 25th anniversary, and then there's another organization in the community that's their 10th, and they're going to partner together for an event later this year, for an art fair and a concert and barbecue. So it's also an opportunity to engage with other organizations in your community to build awareness and excitement. And then also just reflection and feedback. It's an opportunity to really get that feedback from all of your partners, from your donors, from those that have been engaged with you over the year. Why are they still here? Why is this important to them? Why are they still involved? Why are they coming back to the table after 25 years? What's the reason for that? So really, it's an opportunity for you to have those conversations, do a lot of listening, do a lot of information gathering. I know I'm talking a lot, but I also think it's super important with your organizations to be a very, very good listener and finding out like what is their story, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, last slide. And we should have time for about 7 minutes for Q&A. So post milestone. Also just making sure that you are planning for the post. This is like, how at the end of an event, like it's like, who's here to help clean up, right? So we always forget that at the end of the event. We don't want to do that, okay? We want to make sure that we have a whole team that's there ready to go for the post cleanup. Are you doing a really good review? Are you documenting what you learned? Is there something that you would have done differently? Are you doing a thank-a-thon? How are you saying thank you to people? How are you continuing with these relationships that you just built, this past year? Like, don't just throw those relationships, oh, this was an anniversary or a milestone, and like, we're moving on. We're just going to connect with you again, one time next year. Like, take the best practices that you learned from this milestone year and continue to incorporate them into the following year. Hence, like our client that had the 75th anniversary campaign. Okay, we just had this great year. Okay, now it's our next chapter. How are we still engaging all of these people? How are they all still staying involved? What does our year look like? How are we engaging them? And then plan, really thinking ahead. Okay, well, what's our next milestone? Maybe we're 5 years, maybe we're 10 years, but really thinking all of that through. Okay.
And I've seen the opposite of when you don't do this as well, where
Yes.
an organization spend a lot of time raising money, and then once their new initiative was launched, they kind of just let it drop off. They're like, yay, we did it. They celebrated and we're done. And so all of the donors and people who were involved in that dropped off as well. And so then it took more time, more energy. It's so much harder to kind of bring those people back in the fold if they were still interested. So it's really important to have a plan of engagement for after. Now we're
That
done.
was a lot of information. I just threw out at all of you, and Christina threw out at all of you. So I know it was a lot to take in. Hence the reason we're sending all of these materials to you. And we'll also send the recording. It will be up on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and you want to take a look at it. Terry, looks like I just answered your question. And we're going to be sending you, I feel like Vanna White. We're going to send you this beautiful checklist. Hold on one second.
I didn't even know we had a YouTube channel.
We do. So this is your nonprofit anniversary campaign checklist. So it's just a 2-pager that will help you figure out all the things that you need to get yourself through your milestone celebration. So we'll also send that out to you as well. Any questions? There's no way that I answered every question, or that Christina answered every question. Good.
So if
Excellent.
is it safe to
Exactly.
say, Steph, obviously we're not 9 to 12 months out from our own milestone of 8 years old. So basically we start now.
And whatever you can do is fine. Like
Yeah.
that's the
Right.
reality, but don't make sure your eyes aren't bigger than your stomach, right? Like it's like when you go to we have some clients, they're like, we're gonna do this, and this. It's like, no, like that's 2 months from now. Like, do you have the people in place that can make that happen? Do you have the staff in place? Like, make sure that you're creating a plan that I'd rather you put really incredible effort into one amazing thing than have
Mhm.
multiple things throughout the year that burn everybody out because they also have to be doing their regular jobs, right?
And that's why thinking about the goal ahead of time is important, because maybe you don't have a lot of time. So the goal of this is just to like launch a refresh of your brand, or to, as an example, like find a couple key donors and bring them into the fold. And so that kind of changes how much effort you are putting into something and what will take place.
And
Gotcha.
So
remember,
think
you
about the
have a-
point.
And remember, especially if it's a year of an anniversary, you have a whole year. So like Jess and Sylvia, you just said, okay, well, our 5-year is like this Sunday. Like nobody knows that. Nobody knows
Right. Yeah.
this Sunday is your 5th birthday, so it's like you can do something like I know your event is in May. So maybe in the fall, like we already did like a thank you event. So maybe at that you're incorporating your 5 years into something like that, right? We're doing our 5 years because I love to celebrate everything. And so like but you don't have to celebrate every 5 years. You do not have to celebrate. Okay. I'm just telling you, like, be thoughtful about when you're celebrating. Like it does this number have meaning, and is it substantive for you to decide on something larger that you want to do with it? Like, don't burn your people out. Make sure that you have the time. Do something that's reasonable. Like even just an e-blast acknowledging the birthday and telling a story and reflecting back is totally fine if that's what you have the time for this year.
I saw a question. Yes.
that's actually a perfect segue. We were gonna say, yes, we had the same idea to celebrate in September. But how does it work then? So we obviously have our major event in May. We're, asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars. If we wanted to tie this anniversary to a fundraising piece, should we not do that? Because our pool of donors are gonna get donor fatigue. They're paying for, supporting us for an event. We don't also want to ask them to support us at this anniversary, correct?
Well, I would not incorporate that. That event is like off and running, right? But maybe it could be something that's incorporated into your thank you event in the fall, and then also maybe into your end of year campaign at the end of the year, and you can talk about something that's going to be launching in 2026, right? Like this is what we're doing this year. That's what we did with one of our clients. We did a lot of prep work for what that end of the year was going to look like and moving towards the future, what we were going to be doing. So like it could just be that you're hiring a new program person and that's what you're doing in honor of your year. And that's where the extra funds, went. And so this is your special announcement, right? Like I said, it doesn't always have to be a major something. It could just be something small to honor that year. Does that make sense?
And how I mentioned that the point of celebrating something, if you're tying it to fundraising, is the sense of urgency and something new. So people are going to think about that as giving above and beyond there. And you might have a bump and then that bump might go away, but ideally those people will still be engaged and donating. So you shouldn't think about it as like taking away from anything.
And if I could just jump in really quickly, I was gonna mention the end of year. This is something that when you're in the weeds, you're like, wait, our anniversary falls out like in July of 2025. It's like, can I start celebrating December? It's like, no one's keeping track of when your actual anniversary is. Okay. You're the only ones that know. So strategically, if you kick off at the end of that year and you use that entire next year as your way of looking forward to the future, that is okay. Like no one is counting, oh, let me look at their website when they were founded, right? Like use what works for your calendar year. And for our client, we did their end of year campaign and 2024 was technically their 10 years, but we used that as a starting point to where they're going in the future. So even though the branding was 10 years of that organization, a lot of their materials was looking forward. Like in the next 10 years, we want to focus on funding this program. We want to focus on building our infrastructure and support by hiring a program director. So it was looking forward. They were just using that milestone as a way to look back. This is what we've learned and this is what we're going. So a lot of organizations just get stuck in the celebration, like it needs to be at this exact year, but really use it more as Christina and Stephanie said, as a way to celebrate forward.
I know it's 10:31. I'm happy to take one more question. And those of you that need to drop off completely understand, but I always like to give everybody like a one question warning. So I'll take one more question if you have it, and then we'll close down. Any other questions? Maybe we don't even have a question. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much. We
Thank
love
you.
having all of you today. Thank you for being here. We hope this was super helpful. We always like to send out a survey afterwards to make sure that we did a good job. And we also always ask for different topics that you'd like to hear about. But as you know, we're always here for a quick question. So let us know. Thank you so much, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. See all you
Bye, guys. Thank you.
too. Bye.